You're on. I can't resist.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Well, Don Anderson, Chair of the Planning Matters Subcommittee. It's right now 10:35, and we are opening our continuing discussion of the mixed-use bylaw, that proposed bylaw that was sent to us by the Planning Board. Yeah, what I'd like to do, I see we have a quorum, we have all our members here, plus two members of the Planning Board, George Kingston and Tide Richards, and we also have interested parties from the proposed developer. Again, just keep reminding new viewers that we are not voting on their proposal, we're only looking at a bylaw for a mixed use as well. So I'm just basically gonna read an email that came to us yesterday afternoon from the Planning and Community Development Director, Connie Broaders, so we can discuss it because it seems to be on point. Good afternoon. I had a productive conversation with Katie Lucy of Mass Housing Partnership, MHP, today, and tomorrow I will be meeting with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to discuss amending the multi-use village zoning district bylaw to include affordable housing. Katie was instrumental as town planner in Situate in crafting a Situate Harbor mixed-use designation center. Katie recommends affordable housing be addressed under definitions rather than draft a section within the bylaw. Katie is sending the draft multi-use village zoning bylaw on up to her superiors to request technical assistance, so we may have the opportunity to embody a user-friendly bylaw which includes affordable housing within the proposed, I'll use it for here on in, MUB zoning district. This technical assistance will be at no charge to the town of East Long Meadow. Jumping ahead, but necessary to consider in a project of this impact, there are a couple questions that have surfaced in my mind. Number one, has an economic impact analysis of the project proposal been done by the town of East Long Meadow? And number two, regarding infrastructure cost, could this project be revenue neutral, or could this project incur a cost to the town? Just wondering, have we seen the applicant's pro forma? The town has a right to request a written statement indicating the estimated time required to complete the proposed project for any and all phases of the project. Also, a written estimate showing in detail the cost of all site improvements planned should be provided by the applicant. By the way, I have also attached the legal ads that were published, which separates the application and the petition for zoning change. As updates to a zoning map seems to fall off an agenda, I advertise the update to the zoning map with the change in zoning, should the new MU zoning district be approved. I recommend that the Town Council Subcommittee send the final draft zoning amendment back to the Planning Board for another public hearing, or that a combined hearing be held once the final draft is ready to be presented to the public. Okay, like I said, so this came in yesterday around 4:30. I had a wake at 4, so I did not see that till this morning after my 9 o'clock, and as soon as I saw it, I forwarded it to all the subcommittee members, so. Ty.
Yeah, my question is, she talks about the economic impact and cost of the town. That doesn't really have anything to do with what we're doing here today. You're just talking about globally, the project in general, right?
I don't know. I said, this is my first instance of reading this, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to read what she's saying. I'm getting stuff saying, send it back to the planning board.
Through the chair, our job is to do a bylaw here, not look at, as Tide said, the economic impact and everything. To me, that's the council's job. Looking at it, the planning board did their job. And again, going back to the planning board for another public hearing, what are we looking at? Start date of 2030? Come on.
So through the chair.
Yes.
I think there's two separate things that we're talking about there. One is a site plan review, which will be when the developer comes in, the planning board will discuss infrastructure and all of that. That's completely separate than the bylaw that we're creating. I think her points as far as affordable housing, if we can get any professional input through, whether it be Pioneer Valley Planning, to tweak our language and all, that's great. As far as the other aspect of it, we gotta create the bylaw before a developer can even choose whether or not they want their zone changed to it.
Marilyn?
Impact study, certainly not at this level. But it certainly is something to consider because there are concerns about the impact of a substantial number of new residences. And now that we're looking at adding some affordability, we may be looking at more of an impact to our school system than perhaps what was previously thought to be the case. So, that should be addressed, but we need to finish this first and then take that up at the council level.
And wouldn't the impact also somehow tie in to the?
What's being proposed.
Yeah, with what's being proposed, and we're not voting on that at the moment, we're voting on just the bylaw. And would that be part of a host agreement as well? Because how do you determine what an appropriate figure is without knowing what
we're even building.
what we're even building and so forth?
Yeah, that's,
I agree with Ralph.
that's project specific,
Yeah.
it really is,
Right.
not bylaw.
So you guys are on the planning board, and again, since I'm taping, I'm gonna mention names again, tied in George. Is this new to you, what I'm reading? Or do you think there's something that, from a planning board point of view, do we need to, at this, send this back? I know we probably have to send this back anyway because of the substantive changes we made. I think that's, that goes without saying, but I'm just trying to get a timeline on this thing, because I'd like to wrap up what we're doing, we spent a lot of time on it, and we're almost at the finish line to a degree, and then have public comment through the planning board to see what your thoughts are of what this subcommittee recommendation to the general town council are as well, because we said we've taken your original and made some changes to it.
I mean, if I may, it's
Please.
a project that,
This is Marilyn.
Miss Marilyn.
I'm just saying it because I listened to a couple of my things, and unless whoever's transcribing it.
Miss Marilyn is fine.
No.
It's obviously a work in progress from both the council and the planning board. And I don't see why, if legally, and we can certainly ask our new town attorney for an opinion as to why we couldn't have a public hearing for everybody, planning and town council, in the best interest of time, plus we will be discussing the same
Yeah.
thing. And that perhaps could be worked into the charter requirement for the 2 readings of the bylaw change before the council. I don't know, is
Excuse me,
it
yeah.
separate from that?
So-
What is the planning, you two, how do you feel about that?
I'd be very amenable to having a joint public
George.
hearing. I think, obviously, we need to have input from the public on whatever the final form is being recommended to the
Absolutely,
council.
right.
And, there is some question, based on the charter, because of the timing, because it was not acted on within the timing that's specified in the charter, that it should be reheard by the planning board, but we could do it jointly.
Okay.
Ralph, you have comments?
Yeah.
I've done quite a bit of research. Obviously, we talked about this at the last meeting, that our town attorney should look at it. But the charter's pretty clear that the time frame is 45 days from the council's public hearing. Council hasn't scheduled a public hearing, we haven't held a public hearing, so I believe we're still within the time frame. But I also believe that the planning board and the council should hold a joint public hearing. Let's get input from everyone, let's make sure this is right.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to see us send it back to the planning board, wait a month, them hold a public hearing, send it back to the council. It's another month by the time you advertise. If we can group it all together and take care of everything at once. Obviously, we've been on this close to a year now, so, we're getting close. We're getting close. The sheets are getting smaller.
Okay.
All right, so basically at this point, I think we're not gonna necessarily take any, I mean, I think we just have to let what I just read and what we just got. I mean, I suffice to say, having a long history with the planning board, I mean, having technical assistance from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is not something we should slight. We should definitely get their opinion on there. And having probably a joint, I'm just debating whether we want to have a joint subcommittee meeting with the planning board vis-a-vis a full town council meeting with the planning board. Just what are your thoughts on that?
I think when we hold the public hearing,
Anyway, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
here's my
and
thoughts.
that way there
All
we
right,
get input from the public, from the planning board, from the council,
But we're
if we have to adjust, then we adjust.
So we're holding a public hearing on a bylaw that we made some big changes to.
How is
Yeah,
that, how is
exactly.
that?
But shouldn't they be doing it, and then it comes back to us, and then?
What
if they-
difference does it make if we're doing it all at the same time? We're gonna send them the
Alright.
bylaw ahead of time for them to review.
All right, we'll
So
check,
whether
we'll
they're
check,
just
run it
making
through town
comments.
council on it to make sure, because we're,
My vote is joint.
joint meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
All
more
right.
efficient time-wise.
Yes.
One other question, Dawn. Connie sent the public notices for both the creation of the district and the potential zone change for 330 Chestnut if the bylaw or if the district is created through the new bylaw. I don't think that was ever a question. We always knew that both of those were published. I think the issue was more when the document was submitted to the council, it was all in one document, and the zone change needs to be a separate action before the council as the bylaw would be, based
Okay.
on the charter. At least that's what I understand the concern was. And so, it's good,
All right.
okay?
Okay, so I think we can go from this point over back to the bullet list and so forth that Marilyn, wait a minute, I don't have the newest one.
Okay, well.
Yes,
let
I
me-
do, I printed it up.
All right.
I apologize. Go.
For the committee, I sent out two sort of informal documents, if you will, and everyone got them, I hope. And the one dealt with the affordable housing piece, and that was the piece that I did very quickly after the meeting and sent it on to Connie Broaders of Planning and Development, Community Development, to send to PVPC. So that's what we heard about in this email. So until we get information back, I don't know if the definition passes muster for what we want to do. So I would put a hold on that until we have further input.
I think you're absolutely right on that point.
So
Hopefully-
that'll be on
hopefully
the
we can-
next meeting.
We can fast track it. I mean, we'll report back to Connie, you guys will as well, and see if they can get PVPC to, see if they can fast track getting it up to superiors for comment. We can send them the latest working draft bylaw, which is fairly substantive, except for some parts regarding inclusionary / affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
I was watching you as I said that, you know that.
No inclusionary, affordable.
Affordable housing.
We've already agreed on
I
that.
know.
Yes, please.
So, okay, the other piece that I sent out, draft items for discussion included a definition for indoor self-storage, changes to the table of uses, that sort of information. I would like to see us start with that, since there was a little bit of a discussion at the planning board meeting, the last planning board meeting, about this particular proposed use. Does everyone?
Number
have-
3?
I'm sorry?
Oh, we're looking.
No, I'm looking up here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Indoor self-storage.
Yes.
If I may,
Please.
if we adopt this use for our table of uses, it would be placed or identified as indoor self-storage, and I said in the business district, under, under business uses rather, and put Y under mixed-use village. We don't have storage in our current table of uses anywhere.
Nope.
We know that the outdoor storage that we have is permitted in the industrial garden park. But I'm not certain if it's just categorized under a retail business use and that's how it's there, or warehousing, because retail in industrial garden park isn't really a substantive use. So I'm not sure how that's been addressed previously. So it's anybody's, suggestion where we would put it in terms of the table of uses, what category under, and then under mixed-use village, put a Y, if that's what we want to do.
I have a couple questions. Now, regarding this self-storage, we're talking about self-storage for non-residents?
Both.
Okay. What is the purpose of having self-storage for non-residents in this project?
To use up some of the
Meter
commercial,
requirements.
the mixed requirement.
Yeah. My feeling is that it doesn't, because I look at a mixed-use project as being all kinds of different uses that enhances the project, the customer's experience to the project. And the customer is a resident, the customer is someone who's gonna go to a restaurant, the customer is anyone that's gonna go there and spend money and do things. And I look at the self-storage component of it for off-site. I'm not talking about the residents that live there, but for people that don't live there to use that self-storage, I don't see it the same way, because all I see it is a warehouse that people will come to every once in a while to drop something off, pick something up. But it doesn't do anything, in my opinion, to enhance the project in any way, shape, or form, nor, in my opinion, does it seem to add any unique characteristic, anything other than just a building, a stagnant building that does absolutely nothing. I can appreciate the fact that the developer needs to raise as much income as possible because these projects are very, very expensive. And you need to squeeze everything out of it, and I have no problem with that whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. But doing it through off-site self-storage, I feel isn't a use. I think off-site self-storage is better served in an industrial park or someplace, but certainly, you wouldn't see off-site self-storage in the middle of Holyoke Mall, for an example. And the reason why is because even though we're loosely using the term retail, it's not really that kind, it's not what kind of a use this is. This is just, all it is a warehouse with a pretty paint job so it fits in architecturally with the rest of the project. But at the end of the day, it's a stagnant building that doesn't do anything to enhance the project in any way, shape, or form. But in my opinion, it does nothing for the project at all, except for the residents that are there, and it helps them because now they have it's part of their unit, so to speak.
Okay.
So I would be, I'm all in favor of trying to find ways of raising income for the project to help this move forward for the developer standpoint, for sure. But I don't think self-storage for off-site customers does anything in any way, shape, or form for this project.
Okay, that's a fair point, because like I said, because the project's gonna go, if it goes in, you guys will be the first line on it, as well, so that's a good, fair point. Yes,
So
Ralph?
through the chair, Tide, I think we sort of agreed with you when we went through and we looked at businesses that were allowed in different zones. They brought up storage units. The paperwork we got did not disallow storage units. Our concern was, we didn't want, I'm gonna use it because everyone knows, like the Coyote Den type of self-storage, tucked off to the side on their property. So our thought was, if we do an inside storage facility, which is mostly, in my opinion, gonna be used for the on-site people that live there, because they're more apt to use the indoor facility, that would be a gain for us. We'll be able to make it look like part of the community. The residents will actually get inside storage. We won't have a separate entity that would have been allowed on the outside. So I think what we're looking at is, how do we take what came to us that would have been allowed and what they want and combine the two and make it work for everyone? That's why I think the indoor self-storage works. I think a lot of people are gonna be downsizing, going to these apartments and stuff. But they're not, I know myself, I know my family. We don't wanna get rid of the heirlooms. We will pay a fortune to put them into storage, just knowing that we keep them. We're gonna pay 10 times the value of that item just to keep it. And
But I hear you, and, but I'm thinking of, when I think of mixed use, the reason why it's mixed use and not just one use is to create interest, and to create almost its own little community. But I don't think that, self-storage for off-site, customers does anything, like zero, to enhance the project. It's just basically a building that sits there that does nothing.
so if this was only for on-site people, you wouldn't have an issue with it?
Yeah, because I look at, for the on-site people, I look at it as an additional amenity that they can take advantage of because they've downsized, because they've rented an apartment, or they've done things different in their life. They're getting a little bit of a benefit to be able to have a convenient service, to be able to store some of their stuff that may not fit within their apartment. But for off-site, then it becomes a business, and before you know it, you have everybody in the industrial park that says, oh my God, I gotta, take all my product and put it in self-storage for a couple of months because I ran out of warehouse space here and things like that. And I think, if anything, it may downgrade it a little bit, but I'm not even gonna go there because there's no need to. But I just think a stagnant building does nothing. Now, for on-site, I look at it as an amenity for customers that are already there.
Through the chair?
Yes, Ralph?
Can I ask the developer a question?
Please.
I think when we were talking about this, didn't you say something about having like storefronts down below and then up top there was storage on one of your facilities?
Yes.
So I don't believe it's a stagnant building if something like that's built. You have retail sales and all down below. You may have a Starbucks coffee or whatever. And then they enter, let's say, through the side of the back of the building, and maybe the top 2 floors are climate controlled. I think each development's gonna be a little bit different. I personally thought this was a good combination, which will give some benefit to the people living on the site. Will help as far as the square footage goes. Granted, we haven't changed, there's still only one use that can be up to 25,000 square feet.
Exactly.
So whether that's a grocery store, which, I mean, we're talking about these self-storage as if it's a foregone conclusion. They may have an Aldi's come in and they go, we'd rather have an Aldi's here than self-storage units, sorry, that's gone.
So it's only an option.
It's an option.
Well, but the point that Tide, and I'm not sure if he speaks for the planning board, but obviously, that's a fair point, is when you put the percentages together, does a stagnant use count toward the percentages? If it does not, then I think there's a place for it, but if it counts toward the percentages, maybe that could be a concern. I mean, what kind of image village are we looking at? Are we looking at one where one of the anchor places is a storage facility? Or should that be considered, not toward the requisite percentage? And he does raise a good point. I just want to hear,
It's a
see what you guys
business.
say.
And through the chair, I still feel that this subcommittee's vision and a developer's vision are still two different things. What we're talking about here on the subcommittee sometimes, it's an own little community, it's your own little town. I think from a developer's standpoint, a lot of times, oh, we're gonna put apartments in townhomes, we're gonna have some businesses to meet our requirements. But will it indeed be mixed, everything mixed together, or will it be businesses on one side, apartments on the other side? I think we have to be realistic of what we're talking about here.
I think we're reeling back into
Yeah.
the definition of business. Is
Yeah.
a business one where people come in and engage in the business, whether it's product, insurance, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
grocery, or do you have products that you only show up once every quarter or so, and that counts toward the 25,000 square foot product?
Yeah, even though we use the word loosely, and there's a lot of national companies that do it for self-storage, and we call them retail.
Yeah.
They're not really retail. They're warehouses that every once in a while someone will go to, put some stuff in. But it's not a retail building that has a tenant mix, has an interest, it attracts customers, not only to its business, perhaps to some other businesses while they're there and things like that. You know, I hate to use the word self-storage, I'd rather just call it a warehouse, because that's all it is a warehouse. The only difference is the customer is different than a warehouse customer. The customer is more of a residential kind of a customer as opposed to an industrial customer, but at the end of the day, it's a warehouse. It's storing stuff, it's all it's doing is storing stuff. It's not selling anything, it's not producing anything, it's not providing a service like coffee or dry cleaning or things like that. It's a warehouse. So I look at it as a warehouse use.
Good point.
If I may.
Yes, Jane?
Thank you, John. I just forwarded everybody an email, it's from October 2019, about the recent, they're now calling it sort of a lifestyle storage, right? How it's integrated into these mixed-use developments, and that's what people are wanting, is sort of a more modern lifestyle self-storage facilities. And so, which do incorporate, like John said, some retail on the bottom, right? That is a part of the use to make sure that these buildings can still be used for business, and they're how a lot of planners, right, still see these as warehouses, and it's how to integrate those into a more modern design to turn them into more business and retail and commercial uses. So I did just forward that along for people to read if they wanted to. So, just information.
Question
Yes,
or
ma'am.
comment? You know, the whole concept of mixed use, when we started mulling around the possibilities years back, the whole, attraction to me was looking at a section of town that would welcome this kind of use, but it would also bring services to another section of town. While I understand wanting to live in a place and perhaps leave your residential location and walk downstairs and have a cup of coffee, I understand that, but I would also like to be able to meet my friends there and have a cup of coffee. I'm always looking for a better place to have lunch, or to have a recreation opportunity, or maybe use a different hair salon. I really feel that in order for the uses and a mixed-use development to survive, they need the community's support, because we see how much of a struggle it is to begin with, that, retail places, malls are shuttering their doors, and so that's why we're considering this, to give an option for the percentage that we increased. The planning board said minimum 5% of commercial, and we, as a committee, felt that wasn't a balance enough. We went up to 15%. So maybe the 5% that you were proposing initially will be the coffee shop and the restaurant, but I don't want to tie their hands.
I never in my wildest dreams, when we talked about commercial, whether it's 5%, 15%, or whatever it was, ever in my wildest dreams thought that self-storage was gonna be one of the things that could eat away at that percentage. The reason why I never thought of it is because I don't look at it as anything that does anything for the project. It basically it's just a warehouse building. That's all it is. The only difference between a warehouse building and self-storage is the customer is a different customer, but at the end of the day, they still do the same thing. They pay money, leave your stuff, and come back every once in a while to put in, take out. Whereas it doesn't, in my opinion, keep in mind, this is only one person out of the whole town, that's me. But in my opinion, it doesn't do anything for the project in any way, shape, or form. Now, I preface all my comments when I started this morning by saying I'm willing to bend over backwards to think of ways that make this a good project to help the developer make more money, because these are extremely expensive projects to build, and they need to take advantage of every dollar they can to make sure that it's a successful project, which is exactly what East Long Meadow wants, is a successful project that people want to use and be proud of. And I get it, and I have no problem with any idea whatsoever, but I want that idea to do something to enhance the project, not just be a stagnant building doing nothing. It's just my opinion, but we don't need to keep going on with this. I just wanted
Yeah.
to just say how I felt about it, that's all.
Just have one last comment
Yes, Ralph.
through the chair. We know how it works where we'll have a developer such as the area where Rockies was come in and say, we want all high-end businesses, we're gonna do this mix and that mix. And then you fast forward down the road 10, 12, 15 years, and they have to rent those spaces to who's willing to move in. So you may end up with 5 nail salons in a row.
Yeah, and I'm well aware of that.
Although the planning board sits here and says, yes, absolutely, business is something that we can't, all we can say is, hey, this is the group of businesses that can go in. And then we have to hope down the road that a nice, well mix will go in. It's difficult because I know the vision that I want, it doesn't mean that that vision is actually gonna come to fruition when we're all said and done.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And obviously, the highest rent is gonna be if they had 15 pizza parlors side by side all the way down through, but the developer doesn't want that. I mean, if he has to do that at the end of the day, well, then he has to do it, and we're not tying his hands from doing something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's in the developer's best interest, and I'm positive this developer is gonna do everything they possibly can, not just this developer, any developer, is gonna do anything they possibly can to try to provide a unique tenant mix, because it benefits them as well as the project and as well as the town. All I'm saying is, before the project has been built, now's the time to talk about whether you're gonna build additional space for self-storage, for off-site. I keep using the word off-site, because I'm not preventing anyone from on-site. But, now's the time to be talking about this and having this conversation. That's all. I mean, I don't want this whole meeting to be monopolized over self-storage,
Right.
but I just wanted to say how I felt
No, you
about
make,
it.
you make a great point. I never really, I thought of it business until you brought it up and thinking of it as warehousing, and maybe there is a place for warehousing, or maybe that used by, and not take up a big portion of the commercial.
But it doesn't, but.
A small percentage for the tenants.
Yeah, I look at mixed use as everyone's gonna make a contribution, whatever their category is within that mixed use, that's gonna enhance the project. The residents enhance the project, the retailers enhance the project, the office people enhance the project. All these people and all these users enhance the project because they're bringing different uniqueness to the project. They're creating all kinds of interesting things why people would wanna live there. But I don't think anyone says, I'm gonna live there because they have self-storage. Well, they can because they will have their own self-storage, but I don't think that off-site self-storage does anything in any way, shape, or form for the project. But if you guys feel differently, that's fine, I'm just telling you how I feel, that's all.
So is there any issue with the definition?
I just think we maybe need to, like I said, this is gonna go back to the planning board anyway. Todd's gonna be bringing it up. And I think he makes a fair point is, do we define it as a percentage of warehousing, self-storage, and have a definition for self-storage, and whether, and maybe have that not as a 1-to-1 square foot impacting the percentages, but some type of other.
I think by going to the 15%. If it was 5%, I would be more apt to agree with this. So we were talking at 15%, I believe the number about 100,000 square feet came up for business use. At 5%, that would have been 35,000 square feet. So at 35,000 square feet, if you're gonna take self-storage and put it in at 25,000 square feet.
That's it.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
you know what, I agree with you 100%. At 100,000 square feet, that still allows you 75,000 square feet of coffee shops and everything else,
Yeah.
which is a lot more than what they would have had, even if they didn't use self-storage on the 5%. So I think we're doubling the amount of space for all those other businesses that you're talking about. And
I
we're still
think,
giving them an out. And that, the self-storage, I just look at as an out. I look at it as, they couldn't get the grocery store in, they couldn't get the large facility or whatever in, and they still have to make.
right, so all I wanna say is hypothetically, if the choice was 15% with self-storage for outside customers, or, and I'm not saying these percentages.
Combination outside in.
I'm just saying, using these percentages as an example, I'm not saying these are what they are, because I don't know what they should be right now. But either 15% self-storage or 5% non-self-storage, I would go with 5% non-self-storage in a heartbeat, because.
Me too.
I would rather have. Well, yeah, because I'm saying that, the 10% doesn't satisfy the commercial area. Now, if we're gonna drift into these waters, I'd rather reduce the commercial requirement than fill it with meaningless stuff.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ed.
On this, how profitable compared to other businesses are storage facilities?
Well, they're profitable.
It'll be
Okay.
the most valuable commercial space in the place.
Okay,
When you talk about your fiscal impact
Right.
and et cetera,
okay.
And they
No.
don't put the kids in school.
No.
and it doesn't generate any traffic.
Okay, all right. Second, I'm still optimistic we're looking at the maximum of 30%.
I am too.
So,
You mean 30% commercial?
Yeah.
We're in that percentage already?
No,
Well, 15
it's a
to
range.
30.
It's a range.
No more than 30%
No more
can
than
be
30%.
commercial, but a minimum of 15% has to be.
All right, at the end of the
Is that
day,
doable?
just to repeat what I just said,
Yeah.
I'd rather reduce the commercial, eliminate the self-storage,
Okay.
than hold their hand to the fire to the point where they have no other option to put self-storage in, because that does nothing for us.
okay. No, I'm just saying, I'm
I mean, for the good of the
optimistic.
project.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
From a
we'll have
customer
the mom and
standpoint.
pops and the grocery store, there again, our visions are all different.
Yeah.
Through the chair,
Yes, Connor.
even if we ignored the issue of self-storage, couldn't they still put one in since we have them in town, but we've never explicitly put anything in the
Yes.
table of uses about self-storage?
Well, industrial, yeah, because they, you're not seeing self-storage in residential zones. Industrial's the most permissive zone there is, so it's one of those addition by subtraction. And so you can, every one of the self-storage that I'm aware of is in an industrial zone. And so what this is gonna do is the underlying industrial zone is gonna be removed unless we go a different course, which we're not, and make an overlay where there's still characteristics of the industrial still in there, but there is not. There's gonna be a whole brand-new zone. And, but, I mean, I think we have, what, 3 or 4?
It's an allowed retail.
Yeah.
And that's what it's being considered by the zoning enforcement officer as a retail. Retail's allowed in your business zone, it's allowed in industrial.
Right, but every one that we have in town is in industrial, right?
Industrial garden park.
Industrial garden
Or
park.
I'm sorry, industrial
Which
garden.
does not allow retail.
Yeah,
So it has to
Which
be more
is-
warehousing.
Yeah.
Confirming the fact that it's not retail.
Yeah, it's not retail. Yeah,
It's not.
If I may.
Yeah.
We know what it is.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
yes, George.
I hear what Mr. Richards is saying. I don't happen to agree with him. I think that, in my opinion, we need to give the project proponent the maximum flexibility, okay, in terms of what he brings in there. Assuming that it's not going to, we're not gonna allow industrial uses. We don't want a foundry in there or something like that. But in general, I think it's the project proponent who has to come up with what is gonna be a financially doable mix. And I personally think that you should have as much flexibility as is consistent with the kind of projects that we're gonna be looking for. And that we should not be trying to write a bylaw for one specific project.
Absolutely
It should
not.
be general.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my personal opinion, and
Yep,
you know,
that's
we agree to disagree.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking for the planning board, I'm just speaking for
No
Ty
relation.
Richards. One last thing, so let's say hypothetically, let's say it was 30%, and you could use self-storage as that, you could technically end up with 30% of the project being self-storage and 30% of it being residential, right?
No,
No,
Be a very small project.
maximum, one use, maximum is 25,000 square feet
Oh, okay, that's right.
for a
Okay.
single use.
Cap still applies.
Okay.
I tried to ask to move the cap.
yes, he did.
And they said, great, we'll move the percentage. I said, never mind.
Yeah, I would rather, as you have already said, and then we can move on, I'd rather reduce the commercial component and eliminate the self-storage, Because even if you keep it in self-storage, you basically have X number of square feet of commercial that's doing zip for the project.
See, I look at it a little differently because I look at the components of a mixed use to create balance. And I'm not looking, I don't wanna see a 95% residential project and a 5% commercial project. I don't believe that's where the town needs to be. If you're looking at an impact study, we will see what would happen with, that kind. So I'm looking to develop proportions, if you will, of non-residential uses, period. And yes, I think the indoor storage provides a need, addresses a need for the residents. I believe it may address a need for a few of us out in the community who would like the opportunity for a climate-controlled area to store some special items that don't fit well in a storage area that is exposed to the different seasonal changes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've not tested it, but the feeling is it's in the table of uses. It's not a requirement for a mixed-use development.
Yeah, but anyways, let's just move on, because we'll be here all day long and just talk about this one thing, but anyways, that's how I feel about it.
No, we won't. There, 12:30 comes pretty quick.
What's next? Do we want to tackle this now?
Well, we started it.
We're knee-deep in it.
So the question is, the first thing is, you can ask them if they want to put it in the table of uses, and then we'll move from there. You're the chair.
Indoor self-storage,
I'm not sure that's where it should go.
yeah.
We look at the table of uses, we have general uses, we have business uses, commercial, community, I'm not sure, accessory uses. For land use classification. Bless you. Now, under business uses, it says wholesale business. Personal services, I don't know if that would be just to list indoor storage under business uses, or I hesitate industrial uses because of the nature of the project.
General?
I still like in the warehousing definition, maybe a percentage of storage, defining it under warehousing, because the question is,
Well,
where do we put it? Because if it's a business use, do we see storage facilities like this in inline strip malls? Do we see them in others, or do we want to just allow it in industrial garden and the mixed use?
The problem is, do we have the authority at this level to perhaps add it under industrial use and put a yes under mixed-use village and put it no in everywhere else without, that.
Well, that would be part of the public hearing, going back to the planning board to have their hearing and to make comments on that recommendation. Because let's say hypothetically, I'll just pick on the Stop and Shop Plaza.
What about an accessory use?
Yeah.
No,
No,
no.
it wouldn't be an accessory.
It's
Would
not
be a viable
accessory
business.
to the, okay,
Would be a viable business.
all right. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking at,
I would go commercial or business, the industrial works.
this is kind of
I
like
wouldn't
it.
do industrial, I mean, I think. it's
3.091 sort of touches it.
But
in a-
it's not a garage.
No, but it's a garage, if you will, for non-cars. But it seems to be, a private garage.
But you're seeing that under accessory uses.
Exactly, it seems to be the closest fit
But
there
it's
is.
not an accessory use. This
It's not
would be a
accessory, and it's
standalone
not a
business.
garage.
This is where it is right now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is,
He's talking about private garage.
I'm just looking for where,
Right, but that's what I'm saying is, I don't think we can put this type of business use under an accessory use, because we have facilities now that are standalone storage facilities. They're not accessory, they don't have another business or whatever, so this isn't secondary, this is a primary use. I would put it under the business, I would do,
Okay.
Marilyn, like you said, put no everywhere else, and then if someone chooses to put it in another zone, they can ask for a bylaw change to include it in industrial garden park or whatever.
Or the planning board can initiate that as a separate item.
Exactly.
But for this purpose, I would support Mr. Page's comment that you create it as a new use with its own definition, which you have, and either business or commercial, and only, since you're only working on the bylaw for the mixed use, then that would be where you would allow it. And then if the planning board wants to, or our proponent wants to have that use elsewhere, then we can go through the proper process to add it to the
Right.
zoning bylaw.
That's not for us to tackle that.
No.
No.
I would support that.
Okay. I'm looking, well, we'll have to figure out, I was looking where there were an available number would be.
Yeah, under what category though?
Right, well, either, where there was, I was looking for the available number.
It was
for-
in general.
The available numbers,
We had one for live workspace, but that was under community and
Community
public
public
no, I
service, so that
mean, we
would,
can put it in anywhere under the business, let's say you wanted it in between retail and convenience store, you would just put 3.0705.
right.
Obviously, this is all gonna be renumbered, I'm
Through the
hoping
general
before the
code.
end of the year through E-code.
Right.
That's already on its way, it's doing well.
So why don't we, just for the sake of discussion, why don't we put it between convenience store and wholesale business, which is under, in the business zone, and we'll figure out what the number is. Does that work?
Convenience store, like,
The convenience store is 3.071, wholesale business is 3.072. So maybe this indoor storage could be 3.0715.
that works.
Okay.
And to keep it consistent, we'll do 71.5. It looks like when they do creating a new area like gaming establishment, medical marijuana, or actually, they just rolled it to one,
It's all gonna be renumbered.
yeah.
Right, as long as it's just in that location. So under the land use classification of business, between convenience store and wholesale, 3.0715,
0.5.
right?
Yep,
Everyone's okay with that?
3.071.5.
3.0715,
Until it's renumbered.
right. And that's where we'll go.
Actually, there's some inconsistency here. Some of them, they go,
Oh, yeah.
one, they don't have points, and some dot, and
Right.
some don't.
Do you
Okay.
want me, well, okay.
It doesn't really matter, whatever, if they're gonna be recategorizing them, like I said, gasoline filling station doesn't have the
And
point.
the same with massage therapy is,
Yep.
do we want to follow that, and put 0.71.1? I don't care.
It doesn't matter to me, as long as we're
Doesn't matter, as long
consistent.
as it falls in between those two, we're
All
good.
right,
Yes.
okay, we'll just leave it the way we left it.
Correct.
Okay.
When we're typing it up, however we type it, if we remember to point, great, if we don't,
Yeah, the two more recent ones, marijuana and gaming, we did put the points in there.
All right.
That's all, but it doesn't really matter to me, as long as it's gonna be recategorized anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
And just as long as they're consistent, then I'm totally cool with that.
Just numbering.
Just numbering, yeah. All right, so it would be, the areas we'd allow it in would be the MUV and in the two industrial?
We're
I would
just
say
doing
for
mixed
right
use
now,
village.
just MUV,
Okay, but we're creating a whole new,
creating a whole new line, nose all the way across except mixed-use village, because what we're doing right now is creating a bylaw for mixed-use village. If
Right.
the planning board so chooses to allow it in another zone,
Are we-
then
are
they
we-
will create
Aren't we
Yes,
creating
for the
an
other
issue?
zones.
Because what we're calling it is gonna be self-storage, right?
Indoor
Indoor
self-storage.
Indoor self-storage.
Right.
All right, so that's not gonna impact the
Won't
successor of
impact it.
Coyote's Den or anything like that,
Exactly.
because they are outdoor self-storage?
Whoa, 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 whoa,
No.
they're indoor.
That's what I'm,
That's where all those
that's
buildings
kind of
are.
what, that's where I was trying to
Okay,
wrap
but
my
They're all
head around
indoor.
it.
I mean, they have indoor and outdoor.
Okay, but they're pre-existing.
Right.
Yeah, but,
They're pre-existing, you can't outlaw them or affect them because they're already there and
so
operating.
what would harm by putting YY for the two industrials?
Because you're not
Well,
doing
this is-
an industrial zone bylaw.
Bylaw.
No, but we're creating a brand-new table of uses, and we're already putting those across the board except for the other.
Yeah.
Or are we just leaving it blank? In other words, right now, we're in the table of
Actually,
uses.
we've already done it. We did it under the public transportation, ride services, and we created a new use for the mixed-use village. And we went across and actually put no's in all the residential zones. We
Right.
did put yes in industrial, in elderly residential rather, commercial, business, industrial garden park for a bus stop, and then no's everywhere else. And so we've already done it.
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
when we say indoor, Coyote is outdoor entrance, we're talking here, it would be an indoor entrance to the storage
So in
facility.
other words, you have to walk into the building, and then the doors are on the
Let's talk
inside
about
to go into the
definition.
units.
Indoor, no garages, no outside storage, no boats, no campers, no.
Let's look at the definition.
Indoor, in the building, looks like a mixed-use building, has other mixed uses on the ground floor.
So I think we can address the difference of what you're thinking and what we're thinking within the definition. There may be just,
Well, what I'm thinking is anybody that's gonna store anything that's off-site would be a no. That's just Tide Richards, that's not
No.
the planning board or
Can't-
anybody else. That's
Can't
all.
do that. It's gotta be a viable business.
Can I get my boat in one of those things? No, I'm sorry.
No,
It's a little boat.
It's inflatable.
Inflatable. Can get it in. All right. So to me, an indoor, if we're gonna be, either we do it blank across and just deal with mixed-use village and let the planning board answer the rest. I think,
I would be good with that.
I would say,
I would rather do that, and let the planning board hold their public hearing and discuss, because they may want it in the business zone or commercial zone, if it's indoor storage, on a third floor of a commercial building to allow it. I don't know. I would rather,
Oh, we're doing a joint public hearing.
but the joint public hearing is for the creation of a mixed-use village
This is something-
bylaw.
Okay.
Just my thought on it.
In the mixed-use village bylaw, it's indoor self-storage.
Enclosed
Yes.
indoor cells.
Right, whatever you wanna do elsewhere, feel free. But for the mixed-use village district, it's indoor self-storage.
let's look at the definition and see how we can massage that a little bit.
okay.
So we're in agreement right now to just leave it yes under mixed-use village in the table of uses and not address any other district. Okay. Then, we need to make a change in section 8, definitions to include the following definition, which I would also like to see maybe, I don't know, in the table itself, in the document itself, I don't know if we wanna highlight this or just put the definition in under section 8. But it reads, indoor self-storage, a facility that provides indoor units leased to tenants and business owners for the storage of household goods, excess supplies, and archived records as examples. I mean, I don't know what else people would use it for. Such facilities may be climate-controlled, individually secured, and may have multiple stories with elevator access. A storage unit shall not be used as a residence. Items for storage that are hazardous are prohibited. And then I said this should be placed in section 8 for the definitions. So, that is the definition itself, and I have a design standard statement as well that can be used or not used, I just threw it out there. The design of an indoor self-storage facility shall reflect the aesthetics and architecture of the residential and commercial uses within the mixed-use development. And that was similar to language that's it's already in the document under 11E, and it may be repetitious. Just a recognition that this would look like everything else, so.
I'm just trying to think how limiting it is. I'm listening to, is it, so it's for people who are tenants, but for outsiders as well?
I didn't address that. I
Yeah.
just said tenants and
It needs to be
business
clear that
owners.
Doesn't, yeah, because I'm listening.
I would just say individuals, I wouldn't say
Yeah,
tenants or business owners,
individuals.
just
Okay.
individuals.
Okay.
Should there be somewhere where it says no outdoor access? There's indoor
Outdoor
access
storage.
only.
If it were
Indoors, a facility that provides
So-
indoor units.
So through the chair, you had mentioned one of your buildings has some on the ground floor, and then you enter inside, and it's basically like you walk down a hallway and there's units?
Right.
I mean, do you tend to have like a first floor with all garage doors on
No.
it for this?
No, indoor self-storage, so it's, the ground floor is gonna be a
Okay.
mixed-use building.
So basically,
So
you're
like
walking
other
in
mix of uses,
through
and
an
this will just be
entrance, and all of the access to these units are from within inside the
Right.
building. I think that's how you go at this, is.
And actually, with the with the 25,000 foot limitation, it's possible that most of it's gonna be upstairs. Because you're just gonna end up with a storefront effectively that's gonna have the
So,
access
access-
and the elevator and the, the little thing that sells boxes and tape and all that stuff, and bubble wrap. At one end of the building, and then at the other end of the building, you might have a second one that just is an elevator and a stair, just you wanna keep your elevator distances short upstairs.
But people have access 24/7?
Yes,
So access to each individual storage unit is from within the building.
right. No garage
instead of
doors, no
from the
outside.
outside.
That's why indoor
Right.
self-storage, it's indoors.
Well, I sent this definition to everybody, and I didn't get any comments back from anybody, so,
I
what?
just think the eye-opener to me was Ty talking about warehousing. I never really thought of it as warehousing until he said it, to be honest with you. And
Are you feeling it's not?
I kind of agree with him, it is warehousing, but I'm not saying that in of itself it precludes it. I said it was just, I never perceived it that way, but he makes a really good point. And I think, but in light of the fact, like I said, I'm listening to what everyone's saying. Originally it was 5%, they wanted in, now we're at
Right, right,
15 north and north of that. And as long as it doesn't exceed 25,000 square feet, I'm okay with it being indoor. And I'm just trying to find a way to add the, indoor, can we put under warehousing in some way? Indoor warehousing or indoor?
Well,
It's a
Storage.
It
Yeah,
actually
storage.
has a name, it's indoor self-storage.
Right.
It's not,
I
it's
mean,
not a warehouse,
I've
it's
looked
not-
it up online,
like,
and
I
it's
know,
amazing, the
it is what it
websites that
is.
cover
It's-
it, right, right.
It's like saying, whether it's office or fast food or what, it's an actual legitimate recognized use. It's not, and it's not a warehouse, it's not a flex space, it's not an office space.
Through the chair, are we gonna make a decision on this today?
Right.
Include this, or are we
Well,
gonna?
what do you wanna do?
Yeah.
I just,
I mean, the
Well,
definition is.
We're beating this like a dead horse.
well, but I
I
sent
don't-
it all to everybody, and nobody's even sent back responses, this is what I think, this is what I'm thinking about, so.
My read of it
you
was
know.
fine, I was working off my computer, unfortunately.
Here's,
my
through the chair,
copy machine's
my
not.
thought is, it's okay. Would I like to see 25,000 square feet of this? Heck, no. No way. I can see it as giving the developers an opportunity to be successful when they need it, because the economy goes up and down. But with this, yeah, ideally, I'd like to see the
But
place
we have
full of
so-
mom and pops.
Cart before the horse. To be successful is to try and also get residents to move in there. And they're gonna be, again, reluctantly downsizing. They don't wanna lose some of their tchotchkes or Christmas trees and decorations and things like that. Having this on the onset is something that might make people quote-unquote downsize and to have the storage. You have condominiums with outside storage keys and stuff of that nature.
My thought on that is that if they're gonna downsize, they're gonna downsize, whether there's a storage facility there or not. If we're gonna
Through
do
the chair.
this,
Yes,
I'd
Rob?
like to make a motion that we allow indoor self-storage units to be placed into the mixed-use village with us simply adjusting the definition.
And how would you adjust the definition?
My thought would be add something that says all storage units will be accessed from within the building.
What about the limitation of, to service tenants and so
Well, I
forth?
already changed that.
Individuals.
Individuals.
Okay, so your motion would include Maryland's adjustment.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Was
what
that
I-
a
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay, further discussion then.
All right, go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
What I'm suggesting already offers for on-site residents anyways. Because what you just said a minute ago is you wanted to make it more user-friendly for customers, the residents, and I have no problem with that, never had a problem with that.
Right.
My only issue is, I just don't want to, I personally didn't want to see self-storage for off-site customers to be applied against what we're calling commercial, because it's not commercial. It's warehouse.
And we
It's a
can't,
big closet. I mean, I think about uses in my generation who welcome their grandchildren to visit. They may come from the West Coast and they're here for 2 weeks. And then the rest of the time, all the cribs, all the baby furniture has to go somewhere. And right now it goes into my basement. Or it used to go into my basement. But the point is that it's a lifestyle piece that addresses perhaps a lifestyle need of who might be living there. And I'm kind of concerned.
But I'm not talking about people living there.
So,
We
well-
gotta make that distinction.
Well, let me ask you a question. What's offensive about, or what's the problem with me wanting to rent some space which is in close proximity to where I live, for a indoor storage unit to put some of my in-laws' furniture that's currently in our basement, which I really would like to put in a better protected place. What's wrong with me driving in, renting the spot, dropping it off, stopping for a cup of coffee, maybe having lunch, and then going home? I don't understand what the negative is.
Well, you can do that right now.
Can I add something here? First of all, think about enforceability. Okay, if you're gonna just limit who can rent these things, it's unenforceable.
Well, I agree.
Okay, it's totally unenforceable because the building inspector would have to get the records of the lists of people who are renting and all that. It's not enforceable. Second point, this is not a new concept. I grew up in New York City. Every apartment building in New York City provided storage space for people because apartments weren't big enough to store your luggage. So they had a
And
That's what I
luggage room.
said.
And I'm not against that. I've never said one word
I
against that.
understand that, Todd, but
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Bringing up the issue of enforceability, okay, and I think that's an issue, and I think the other issue is that it's gotta be financially viable, and if somebody who's there chooses not to rent a unit, then that unit's gonna sit there empty, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be rented to somebody else. That's my opinion.
so we don't have to get into first options. That's gonna be a business decision by the developer, who gets
Absolutely.
first rights. So
Absolutely.
if Maryland wants to take spots, or I take a spot, and the people who live there can't use it, that's immaterial. It's gonna be first come, first served. And that's up to the developer to make
It's up
that
to the
decision.
developer to make the decision.
Yeah, okay. It's not something we want to put in here. All right.
Move to vote.
I just want Marilyn, if you don't mind, or I will, could you reread the definition?
I don't have, all I have is the one change of the word. I have nothing else. I have the facility that provides indoor units leased to individuals and business owners, and the rest is what you have. You had
So
mentioned,
my thought was to add, all storage units will be accessed from within the building. And that way there you don't have the garage doors on the outside.
Will only be accessed.
Will only be accessed from within the building. And
Okay,
again, wherever we so choose to fit that. I think my motion to vote is simply, are we gonna allow storage units or not? I mean, that's,
I figured it would also, since we get the revised language in here, definition. You agree, right? In the second, having it all part of the revised language?
That's fine.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Connie.
All right, let's have
you know
a,
what you just agreed to?
well, we're gonna listen to it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yeah,
Since I'm not a member, I'm not a voter, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean,
Good thing.
you will have a chance
Yeah, but
to,
I'm talking about
Revisit.
if I didn't speak up, I'm telling you why I didn't speak
We are in Massachusetts, though, so
up. In any event, we're good.
Okay. And how about this? Indoor self-storage, a facility that provides indoor units leased to individuals and business owners for the storage of household goods, excess supplies, and archived records as examples. Such facilities may be climate-controlled, individually secured, and may have multiple stories with elevator access. All storage units to be accessed from within the building, and no storage unit shall be used as a residence. Items for storage that are hazardous are prohibited.
can't run a business out of it either.
sounds good to me, and I can't imagine any situation where they're not gonna, that may doesn't become a shall, as far as individually secured. I didn't have an issue with it in the first reading. So I think it's kind of a captain obvious thing, so I think I agree with you, I don't think there's gonna be any may on there. May,
Well, I wasn't sure.
climate controllers,
Right.
absolutely, but the other one, nobody's gonna be in business a day if it's not secure.
Well, and I said maybe climate controlled, there's a more, a
Yeah,
higher
it's fine.
rate for climate as opposed,
That's absolutely fine,
Okay,
I'm
all
fine
right,
with it, I
okay.
just said, yeah.
any other?
Okay, any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh my gosh, how long did it take us to do this?
Well, we,
That's one more checked
all
off.
opposed, no,
Right,
it
right.
carries, all right, so Maryland's definition is
Okay.
fine, it's the final draft.
The next comment was about requiring that the design feature, and perhaps that's already addressed in 11E of the document. 11E says, I hope I have it. It says, the commercial and business units of the mixed-use development shall be planned and designed in an integrated manner to complement the residential units and help foster vibrant, workable, livable, and attractive neighborhoods consistent with the town of East Long Meadows zoning bylaw and with this section. I think that addresses it.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
That addresses it.
Okay. That's done.
Okay.
We've done this, that's the next, that's the other punch list stuff. Whatever you want to do.
All right, let's,
I also, through the chair, might have two easy ones, just in my review of the latest version of the whole document.
Sure.
I think there's just maybe two little things to point out. Under 6B, we have like 4, and we spell out the word 4, but then in parentheses, we have 4.5. If we're spelling out the word 4, should
I
it?
have no idea where you are, Colin.
he's over, I'll
The full
say that.
document.
Oh, you jumped from the
Yes.
He wants to
punch
hit a
list?
couple easy ones,
Oh,
60.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Should it just be spelled out 4.5?
4.5. Page 5 of 8,
Yep.
Because we said
Item
four.
B.
number 6B.
4 and 1/2 spaces per 1,000, so.
Yeah, just because we
Yeah,
put 4.
because we added the
parentheses.
.5.
I'm sorry.
Right here.
You're saying 4.5?
Yeah,
This doesn't say 4.5, it just says 4.
Oh.
4 and
Yeah.
1/2.
I was gonna
See,
say
if you read
that's
It says 4.
still
Yeah.
the edit
and
stages,
we've
gotcha,
corrected it to
gotcha.
4.5. So what he's saying is this should read 4 1/2.
Yes.
Okay,
And then the
that's there.
second one was under 10D. We had, since we discussed previously to remove all the inclusionary terms and replace it with affordable, there's just one outstanding that's inclusionary.
Right here.
Oh, yep.
Which one's that?
10D. Second line down says inclusionary housing, it should say affordable housing. Absolutely. Yeah, I like these are quick.
Yeah, that was that.
Any other quick points?
Those are the two I had.
So through the chair, under the bullet points that we have, under the miscellaneous actions, number 4 is assorted numbering in the document, and number 5 is document prep. If it's okay with the chair, once we've got pretty much everything, I will take that on and recompose the whole document to put it into the correct form, numbering and everything that we need, and have a copy back to you.
Will you take the red and make it black?
I am trying my heart. I did it 3 times,
'Cause
it
I'd be
popped
happy-
black and went back to red. It was like,
Well, that's what's happening
What
on my,
happened?
that's what's happening on my computer, that's why I
I
wondered
think
what.
I know a way around it, so yes,
Well,
I
we'll
will
work
absolutely.
together on it, absolutely,
Yep.
and I don't have any preference as to how it.
I just have
Printing in black and
3
white.
weeks still to go before I go back to work, and I have really nothing to do other
Oh
than
my
painting and
gosh.
selling a house and everything, so I thought between 1 and 3 in the morning I could do this.
And what's the address of that house?
Carolyn, I can show you, that's what I was doing, I was having like my notes around the side, bullet
Right.
points and
Yep.
stuff. And so when it prints out there. What you do is, that's an apple,
Prospect
right?
Yeah, right.
I know, print it in
Well,
black.
I know.
I know, anyway, what I do is, you get rid of the tracking, and then you save all the final, and the red goes away.
Okay,
I did that.
Thank you.
My stuff's purple, my change.
All of this pops up red, and it won't allow me to change back to
I'll work
white.
on it with you.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so 4 and 5 are taken care of.
Right.
1's taken care of because we're waiting on language.
Yes, that's next meeting, hopefully.
Here's the open.
2.
Number 2, the bullet points?
Yeah.
Host community agreement.
You wanna do that, or you wanna do
Sure.
the business signage first? Because I think we pretty much already agreed to that, didn't we?
Oh, signage?
The signage?
Yeah.
I think we pretty much already said what's going to be in the business, allowed in the business district will be allowed under the mixed-use village.
As to placement, I put it under 3.23, I believe. Where's that?
Oh. The numbering will be different when it goes to the bylaw, because signage is all under section 5.8.
But it was the area for business and commercial uses, 3.21 discusses the sizes, 3.22 discusses the ratio between commercial and residential, and I thought 3.23 could address the business zones, signs. Is that all right?
Within this document.
Within
is
this
what-
document?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And the business zones, just to be clear, since we're adding items that aren't typically in business zones, like the warehousing, I'm sorry, the indoor storage, is there signage requirements for that? Is it gonna overlap with business? Is it gonna be considered a business?
I think the signage should be applicable to every use within the mixed use.
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
All right, so
And so.
even if it's unique to this, but
Exactly.
if it's a business type use, even if it's not allowed in a business, the sign standard should still be the same
Still
as a
be the same.
business. Okay, that makes sense.
As read, it says all signs permitted in the mixed-use village district are subject to section 5.8 signs
Okay.
as it relates to the business district East Long Meadow zoning bylaw.
I figured that was an easy one.
Decided that was okay.
Okay.
That is
Next.
fine.
Ms. Mary.
Host community agreement is the last thing that I have on my list. Now, I had, all right, here it is. Does anybody have anything for host community agreement?
Well,
Or
we
is
have it under 10D.
Yeah,
right
no,
now, a
yeah,
little
we
bit, so,
have to,
I'm just waiting, I wasn't sure.
so it's gonna address impact issues such as, but not limited to, traffic mitigation, affordable housing, school enrollment, public safety, peer review, and anything and everything else that we so choose.
Is,
No response at all, huh?
you know, my feeling
think
is
a
that,
lot-
this was suggested, a host community agreement was suggested in the very initial
Yep.
application to the town, and not knowing what a particular development is going to create in terms of concerns, I think just identifying that a host community agreement is required and there may not be any issues. Traffic may be perfect, there's not gonna be any kids in school, I mean, I don't know, but the point is that just referencing that it's there and to include these possibilities, but not limited to those.
I think in light of the email we received from Connie, that I forwarded to you, I think I think a lot of that's gonna be determined by this economic impact for whenever project comes in. I think you're right, I absolutely agree with you, Marilyn, that we should have a spot for it. But I think we also should have an economic impact requirement within that spot.
Jane Monleski, Attorney Jane,
Yeah.
sent us some language which I thought might be suitable. The proposed development shall be subject to the provisions of a host community agreement approved by, in this case, it says the city council, but in this case, I would think it might be the town manager. I'm not sure who would have the authority to enter into this agreement with the developer.
I believe
It
that you're
says-
right, it's the town manager.
Town manager.
I mean,
Yeah.
that, I put town manager with a question mark because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you're right.
And that language could be added to what we just talked about if you're so inclined.
I'm just trying to think of the flow to the town manager, it's clearly under the charter, it's with the.
It's contractual.
Right, it's just that, should it be part of the site plan approval for at least the planning board to see a copy of this agreement, albeit it's gonna be endorsed by the town, signed by the town manager, but I think does that language as a standalone, yes, Jane?
So where the language came from, again, was from Springfield, right, with our,
MGM.
MGM. So how that worked is we negotiated the agreement with, obviously, the city solicitor, right, and the mayor. And the negotiations happened between the mayor, right, and the city solicitor, and then it had to be approved by their city council. So I think that's probably similar here, is your negotiations happen with the town manager, and then it's approved at town council or through site plan, or however you want to do it.
So through the chair, was that done in conjunction with like this
With site
development?
plan, no, not with the.
So in other words, if we were doing this, would the developer go to the town manager first and create a host community agreement for a proposed development? Or would they go through site plan, find out what's allowed, and then create it based on
I think it would be
traffic and,
dual track situation. And that there would have to be open communication.
It's usually a condition of the site plan.
Right, if there's
Or the
usually open
special
communication
permit.
between the town manager and the body, whoever's gonna approve it.
so the condition of the site plan would be that a host community agreement would
Yes.
be signed.
Correct.
Right.
Or the
And
special,
then-
special permit, really,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right, the plans aren't signed until
That agreement
Until
is
that
that
is
agreement's
done.
reached.
Okay,
So the planning board would have, nor should they, have any say in the host agreement. All the planning board would say is, we've approved, hypothetically, we've approved your plan contingent upon a host agreement that the developer works out.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's good.
and that way there, if there's any rules, whether it be traffic mitigation and, you know, how much traffic and if they're gonna have to help pay for an intersection or something like that, I'm assuming that all goes under your host community agreement.
Yep.
As negotiated by the town manager and approved by the town council. I'm just trying to figure out how to put that language in with,
Proposed development shall be subject to the provision of the host agreement approved by the town council.
but it would be negotiated via, with our town manager, through our town manager and
Right.
the applicant.
I just think does the town manager,
Does you want to do this?
no, does the town manager have the expertise? I understand it's in the charter, but in other words, what's the,
It's up to her, though, if she so chooses
to look for?
Or to ask for legal
to get help.
counsel.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
That would make,
I think
that
that
would
goes
make
with any
sense. But I
contract.
think having the ultimate, with the town council having the final review on it, because, you know, if you miss something like what Connie said yesterday about the community, the impact study, let's say the town manager, a future town manager, I doubt Mary would ever do that, comes in and just says, oh, that looks good to me, yeah, I'll sign off on it. You know, I think there has to be a certain kind of criteria that they look for. Yes, Jane?
So what happened, right, that happened to us in Springfield, and what happened was that the city council actually had the ability to amend, and they amended certain provisions before it got finalized and approved, so.
And then had to be re-signed off by Sarno?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly, what we're talking about. It would go to the council, and the council may look at it and say, no, this, and this was missed.
Mhm.
So
Go
that-
renegotiate, right.
Negotiated, yeah.
Is this, I know we're up for the charter review, is this something that is allowed in the charter, that we have as a town council, that review capacity, to approve, or is it something we should also be adding in the next charter review that we do have that? In other words, is the authority under the charter, and I'm looking at a member of the charter commission,
Two of them.
two of them, actually. In other words, are we
looking at you,
is this language,
We're not
which I
overstepping.
like what they did in Springfield.
Because the
Okay, I wanna
charter
be clear, but
specifically-
I haven't, Springfield, I like it, but can we do it
Yes.
without a chart? We
And
can.
we can do it because we are creating a bylaw, which in the bylaw says that this needs to be done. So the charter basically says that we have to follow all laws, general laws and bylaws.
Okay, so we're not, this isn't something that needs to be, that the authority of the town manager,
They may want to
regardless.
tweak it when they do a charter
Regardless
review.
of our approval, is not approval enough. We can add that extra layer
Yes.
without changing the charter.
Yeah,
That is
I believe so.
correct. Okay, good, I just want to be clear on that. On there. Maybe something we might want to, in the next charter review, maybe further codify that, but as long as it's within the authority to do that without minimizing any of the power of the town manager, then I guess that's fine.
What about, in section D, we insert language similar to, the proposed development shall be subject to the provisions of a host community agreement negotiated by the town manager and approved by the town council. Such agreement shall address impact issues, or said agreement, or host community agreement rather, will address impact issues such as but not limited to traffic mitigation, affordable housing, school, and so on and so forth.
I like it.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, fine by me.
Motion to approve that language?
Second. Motion made and second, any discussion? I'm hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. You're fresh. Okay.
That was my last bullet point, I think. It can't be. We've got to be able to come up with something.
Gotta be something else.
Settle down, Rose.
Easy now.
What I will do
We got
is.
30 more minutes, come on.
Well, let's talk about, I brought this, if I may, it's an article that was in the paper on February 12th, and it's about a housing project that's occurring in Springfield.
Yeah.
And the Elm Street block has long been vacant, and they're now putting in a $55 million housing project. And what fascinated me was that the housing included it had a category, I don't know if I can find it. It sounded like an affordable category, but it was listed as workplace or.
So there's affordable and then there's workforce.
I'm sorry.
Two
Workforce.
Affordable and then workforce.
And
You're
would
doing
that workforce be similar to?
80,
80%.
and that affordable is, there's a lower threshold.
There is a lower threshold, okay, okay. So that's the same that we're trying to do here, just different nomenclature or different,
Well, you would do workforce, so that project is gonna have a certain percentage affordable and a certain percentage of workforce. They're two separate categories. So the workforce is gonna be, right, like the 80%, like we wanna do, like the town wants to do here. So you would have that workforce language as opposed to the necessarily affordable language, which would be the lower threshold.
And without all the incentives, that project would never be brought. Ever.
There's a lot going on in that project.
Yeah, big time.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now,
I'm very familiar with that building. I opened the cruise store right here on the side,
Oh my
5th floor.
gosh.
And that was next to my law office.
you heard it here, he's gonna have a penthouse apartment.
There you go.
I had some fond memories until it started going down, and I was certainly in the best shape of my
Well,
life when the
I wish
elevator
them- I
broke and I had to
hope it
walk
works.
5 flights every day. Clients weren't so appreciative of that, but anyway, back in the day.
Okay. So in the information that I submitted to Connie over the definition of affordable, which we really didn't discuss today because we're waiting to hear back from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask Joe Conley, did I touch base on what I was supposed to touch base on?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I feel better. Okay. I'm done.
All right. You guys good with meetings on Tuesday? I know certain Ty Richards is, but
What's the next meeting date?
let's take a look. Look calendar.
The 10th?
I think part of it is we've got to find out when we're gonna get a response from Pioneer Valley.
Is that our only remaining
I think,
topic?
I then just do a once-over through the rest of it, just make sure we didn't gloss or miss anything, and then I think send it. Then we'll give a report to the council, and then also concurrently send it to the planning board for comment as well. Am I missing a step?
Schedule a hearing.
So
Schedule a
what
hearing.
date, what
There's a
date,
concept.
what date are we looking at for the meeting, first of all?
We can do, let's see.
Next week is primary day.
Oh, that's right, yeah, I can't do it then. All right, the following Tuesday, March 10th, we should have 2 weeks, that should be plenty of time, right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ralph, you wanna
Two-
clean up
two-
the document between now and then?
Sure, this afternoon works for me.
All right, so Tuesday, March 10th.
Copy me in on your distribution.
Yes.
Thank you.
10:30?
Yep.
10:30. I will confirm that the space is available, and unless you hear it, I'll copy you guys into my email, and otherwise it'll be, we should be ready to hopefully take it further. I don't know if we can, if you can relay to Connie, maybe we can get somebody from Pioneer Valley to come in here, or is that necessary? No, save it? Okay, I'm watching a lot of left-right moves here.
No, that's not necessary.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I ask you a question?
please.
So we'll meet the 10th, then what happens, what are we gonna do, what does our timeline look like after that?
After that,
6 to 8 months.
Oh, no.
He's kidding. After that, hopefully we'll have some type of final proposal. I'll discuss with our council president and, well, the town manager to see if I can have permission to share a copy over to our town attorney for comment, to make sure we didn't miss any obvious points. Have a draft sent to the planning board as well, so you can at least talk about scheduling a meeting and see if you have any, see if your collective mind has any ideas that we missed as well, and then start scheduling public hearings.
Does it make sense to let the town attorney look at it now, even though it's not complete, so at the next meeting on the 10th, in case there's something that was missed, we could talk about it on the 10th?
Well, if Ralph will have that final draft pretty soon, I'll talk today
We'll work
to the
on
town
it.
manager before tonight's meeting, and to Kathy Hill, the council president, to see if I have permission to reach out to town attorney for comment, because I think that was her last email. She being Mary, doesn't want people going out directly around her and spending
That's
attorney's salary.
That's fine.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'll do that today before our meeting.
Through the chair, optimistically, mid to late April for the joint public hearing.
Let's hope.
You have a 5th Tuesday this month.
You're really pushing.
Optimistic.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I mean,
Well, okay.
planning
I'm-
board meets 1st and 3rd, council meets 2nd and 4th. You
No,
happen to have a 5th.
not
this
in
month.
March.
Not in March?
Not
Because
in
of
March.
the
Planning
election
can't
is a
meet on the
mess,
3rd
right.
because,
Okay.
Yep.
so they're making,
You guys will be
meeting on
voting
the
for me,
10th.
that's why.
Oh, yeah, the 31st, that's the 5th.
We are hoping to push it along. I mean, I think we pretty much hit on our bullet points. I think we
Now,
compiled
is the
it.
cleanup, any surprise things that we may have overlooked?
We have to clean up
Yeah.
and look.
Yes.
The issue is, with you and I going through the document, that's fine, we have this page of affordable stuff that's not yet in the document.
Correct.
Because I don't know what's gonna happen with PVPC's.
That's kind of why I was suggesting to have that person come in, but if we can get
Well-
closure on it, review, then maybe we can.
What my thought is, Marilyn, is we will do up something that looks appropriate, because if it's in there, it's in a certain space, it's easy to change.
And I'm happy to do this because we all basically agreed what language was there, and the definitions now meet what we're trying to achieve. The other piece that's still outstanding under affordable housing, we have the definition of what it is, then we have the table of development, and then another actually, there's a different definition, I'm sorry, there's just a description of affordable housing units, then there's this other definition, plus item number C is Pioneer Valley Planning Commission weighing in on preferences. Now, we got some information from Joe Connolly on how they handled that in a development in New York. But we don't want to violate the Fair Housing Act, so that's where we were looking for some guidance.
Can preference be part of the host community agreement?
Yes.
I think that's the easiest place to put it.
Good. If that would be, then we would just leave that whole section out and add it.
And allow our town manager to negotiate preference.
So for example, in Springfield, right, the host community agreement had dealt with, certain numbers of people to be employed as vendors at that project or construction, and that dealt with certain preferences with respect to veterans and women-owned businesses and things like that in the host community agreement. That's where that was dealt with.
I believe one of the documents you sent to also had municipal employees
Yes.
as a preference. And again, so these were all things that I think is separately negotiated.
But if you can finalize the document on the 10th, then you should be able to immediately schedule a public hearing and get the paperwork moving on that so that it
Yeah.
goes to the newspaper.
We have to hear from Connie before then.
Can we tentatively schedule that public hearing?
Well, you have to have the finalized document ready
Okay.
when
Yeah.
it hits the paper,
Yes,
because
okay.
it's available.
Right, right.
You don't, I don't think you have to put all 5 pages in the paper.
Right.
But you do have to have it available, so the
People
day
can
it
see
shows
it.
up, somebody can walk in Mary's office and say,
Correct.
I want to see this.
If it's more than 12 column
So do I just
inches,
Yeah.
you do not have to include the whole document.
Yeah.
There's a
And
change
the-
to the charter.
And I don't think you need the
Preference
approval of the
to-
planning board to go
I
ahead
don't wanna say
and,
income,
and do that.
veterans.
If planning board
I
has
think
changes.
it's
to
seniors.
it,
That's what I'm
Senior
kind of
housing
referring to
veterans.
the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to give us some
Right.
language on that for preference.
I
because
mean, you
don't
could,
want
you could, we're talking about preference here.
First responders.
Seniors, first responders, veterans.
Teachers, maybe, I don't know.
I mean,
I think when we write up
Council
for the host
members.
community agreement, we can just put a line in there that says, to discuss, possible preference for, and just list, municipal, whatever we want.
well, that's what I'm trying
it's
to,
just-
that's what I'm trying to flush out.
That we're not inventing the wheel, that the wheel's been invented, and that somebody from PVPC will be able to give us a little tighter language and accomplish what we're hoping to accomplish.
Correct.
And that's kind of like, but at least put it in there so we can add
Yeah.
a line here or there. I think that'll
I think once the
streamline.
document's pretty well set, it's easy just to click, add a few
Exactly.
more
Plugging
words
in
here or
numbers,
there, yeah.
Yeah. And George and Tide will report back to Connie and, tell them, see if they can get Pioneer Valley to
Maybe we can
amp
come
it
up
up,
with some
you
language.
know.
I'm thinking
That,
about all these
we're
groups.
both members of Pioneer Valley.
Okay.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm the alternative member. I'm the alternative, right?
Right.
And you're the member.
You're the alternate, I'm the member.
I'm the alternate, yeah.
I'm the commissioner, you're the alternate.
Yeah, it's funny because I went to my first meeting, they're going around commissioner, I'm like, who are all these commissioners? I didn't realize
your title?
George's title was a commissioner.
He's a big cheese.
Yeah, I'm thinking
That's
someone
great.
from Boston was down there.
I'm glad we have representation at that level.
I'm also treasurer of the organization.
You're a treasurer too?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he did an
Okay.
excellent job of introducing me to everybody in the room.
We're pretty good.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to close this meeting with hope to reschedule on March 10th at 10:30 right here.
So motion to adjourn?
Motion has been made, or I'll give it to you. Made,
Yes.
Seconded. Any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.